So this is the Lunch with MECAD webinar. We are going to today just quickly discuss a couple of points around the Elite Enhanced Subscription side of things. So I'm very excited to tell you a little bit more about that. I think before we begin, I might actually just say that this is rather daunting. This will be my first webinar actually that I'm doing today. So I do understand how application engineers often feel having to do these for our customers. They do a fantastic job with that. So kudos to them. Normally conditioned to standing in front of you as an audience rather in live and in person. I feel more comfortable doing it that way. But I'm going to do my best today to take you through this. So maybe we can quickly start with our presentation. So again, just welcome to everybody that has joined, and let's kick off. So I want to quickly just run through the agenda points with us, with you at the moment. All right, so today we are going to briefly discuss the introduction to MECADs Enhanced Subscription and obviously the Elite imperative. Essentially, we're just going to give you a bit of a backstory as to why enhanced subscriptions, where does it come from, how did it come about, etc. I also will point out to you as well the return on investment mandate as well. Seeing this rather as a strategic benefit and an asset rather than an additional cost, as there is a bit of an uplift fee to that. And then obviously the goal, for totality of this is to shift your team more to being reactive than proactive. We'll then go through mastering your training and skill benefits. So we'll go a little bit more into detail in terms of what exactly Solid Professor is. In terms of that, how do we actually go about getting it? How do we activate it? How do we deploy it on your end? And then, of course, we'll look at other aspects as well in terms of the benefits that are associated with Elite subscriptions, and that would tailor into instructor-led training credits. We'll also start talking about strategic expert access as well, just with regards to troubleshooting with an Ask an Expert session. We're going to also talk about unlocking exclusive discounts and tools. So typically the MECAD tools, I know many of our customers are quite familiar with this product already, having utilized it up until now. But we're going to quickly dive into that. And then obviously on the consulting and SLA discounts, recruiting, of course. And then lastly, we're going to leave a little bit of space open for maybe defining some next steps, just in terms of how you can participate in this, how we intend to engage with you moving forward. And then, of course, obviously what the planned rollout is with this, and we'll then open this up for any questions that you might have. So just jumping straight through into this, first of all, the backstory. So I'd like to just give you a bit of detail in terms of what we're aiming at towards here. So essentially, we've been spending a reasonable amount of time, obviously, with customers. So yes, we've been spending a lot of time, obviously, engaging with our customers through various channels, face-to-face meetings, workshop events, webinars, annual launches, and obviously marketing surveys that we do quite frequently as well. The main purpose of that, obviously, being that we do have your best interest, obviously, always as customer at heart. It is our mandate, obviously, to try and find the best possible solutions and provide, obviously, the best possible services to you. So through this process of listening and sort of being attentive to customers and their needs, we sort of started a bit of a discovery journey on the MECAD side, where we spent a bit of time speaking to local resellers as well as global resellers. We've been looking at global trends as well, obviously monitoring these trends in terms of how things are changing, shifting with resellers, how designers are obviously uptaking software that we pretty much provide, and what sort of value or gaps in value system or value chain essentially were there that we could obviously rally behind and obviously put into place and deliver additional value over to you. So over a season, we've obviously discussed a lot of this internally. We've reviewed a various number of different products, pretty much like MECAD tools and a whole lot of other things that we've also developed. I think you would have seen some of the new technologies that we've brought forward if you were at our launch events, which we're very excited about as well. But this is just an additional part of this journey. So essentially that is the backstory as to this. We ultimately came upon obviously the purpose of trying to improve what is currently your subscription benefits as you know it today. So most of you are familiar, but I think it's always a good thing to just remind customers around it in terms of your standardized SOLIDWORKS benefits. And also to point out that these benefits are not only just applicable to SOLIDWORKS perpetual license holders that are on annual license subscriptions, but also to term license holders. So if you're buying, yearly paid SaaS model product term licensing, that obviously would also incorporate your SOLIDWORKS subscriptions as you know it today. So essentially, we're talking about new major version releases as such. So that's basically jumping from SOLIDWORKS 2025 to 2026 as an example. Obviously, your software uptake service pack through the year as well. I know a lot of the customers tend to sit on older versions, major releases, until the service packs are usually a little bit further on. So obviously there's a lot of seasoned users and they're quite conditioned to this. On the local support side, we have unrivaled technical support at MECAD, obviously being one of the forerunners, I would say, in the market in our local context as well, and sub-Saharan Africa, which is actually our geographic that we serve also. Then of course the early visibility programs. I know some of the customers are usually quite eager to jump into that and have a look at what's sort of featuring or what's sort of new in SOLIDWORKS. And then lastly, of course, the certifications that DS SOLIDWORKS also offers you, typically through a subscription activation or service. In a year or the space of a year, you would typically, through 2 semester periods, be able to access 3 vouchers. So I think that in total is actually a total of 6 vouchers that you'd be entitled to in a space of a year and obviously over 2 semesters. So that's your typical subscription. And I think then the big question was, what can we do additional to a typical subscription to actually add more value? And eventually we came upon our Elite Enhanced Subscription, which is the name that we've provided or kept for our new offering that we are actually putting on top of our existing subscription. So it's not to replace it, but rather to bolster it and improve it. And essentially what's in here is on-demand access to Solid Professor, which is one of the partners that we've aligned with. It is an online learning platform. You could go and Google it if you want to. In fact, you could even purchase the product directly as a training tool from them. It is obviously much more expensive than we're going to be able to provide to you, but essentially it's a product that's been in the market for many, many years, running and very close aligned with SOLIDWORKS developments as well. So as each year of SOLIDWORKS has been developed, so Solid Professor has also been delivering and updating their actual content for delivery to customers. And essentially, it's a training platform, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But in addition to that, besides having this learning channel, this learning platform that we obviously identified as a very suitable fit for our markets as well to add increased value, we also decided internally from a MECAD perspective and a management perspective that there are more services and there are more products that we could probably render to you, in a way or a fashion to add more value to you. But again, it aligns with what you've been telling us. It aligns with where trends and market trends are moving. It pretty much aligns with what we're hearing on the ground from our sales teams as well, out in the field, speaking to customers and coming back with feedback. And these were some of the things that we identified that were core needs. One of them being instructor-led training. So we don't believe that obviously an online learning channel is completely going to replace instructor-led training. So we still very much believe in that. And we still obviously have facilities to cater toward that. It's still a very important part of skills, development and obviously advancement. In addition to that, obviously, we've added an Ask the Expert session to this bundling as well, which provides 2 hours of very sort of detailed, very bespoke, I would say, insight sessions. But ideally, this is basically on receptiveness of your information in terms of what it is exactly you would like to discuss. But we'll go into more detail about that later. And then, of course, MECAD tools, as I said, a lot of you are very familiar with it. We're essentially providing a very good discounted rate on already a very good offer, a very low priced offer. And then, of course, you're familiar with our technologies companies. We have these discounts, obviously, for consulting and, of course, SLA agreements. And then lastly, one that's mostly sometimes overlooked, but is actually a very important facet to your business and obviously the markets as a whole, is obviously recruiting as well. So there is a very attractive structure in terms of the placement fees and the discounts that we levy against that, where obviously we assist you with actually finding and placing someone suitable for your organization. And it's not always specific to CAD design, or draftsmen or engineers. It could be pretty much anybody in your business where you see or have a requirement for that need. All right, so just jumping through to that, I think the biggest obviously aspect always is the return on investment. For any uptake of any additional fee or anything that we're trying to position to you as a customer, there's 2 areas that are always very important to you, is what we understand. is the value that's added ultimately. But then also more important is actually what do we get out of this at the end? How does this actually return? How do we get the value to actually represent something tangible where we can see a return on investment? And I've quickly put together this slide just to demonstrate or try and articulate to you just in terms of a visual representation of that value. So let's quickly run through this again. When we talk about on-demand access to Solid Professor, so something that, or maybe before we go there, let me start first by pointing out to the little blue pillar there. Basically, you see it says 4,300. That actually represents Rand. Sorry, I didn't put a currency denoter in there. But essentially, that would be the price for an Elite subscription. So that's the uplift fee. In other words, when you receive your annual subscription renewal, on top of that subscription renewal for your CAD license, essentially would be this 4,300 Rand uplift fee. So let's start there. And now I'm going to shift over to the left-hand side. And we're going to quickly look at just a scenario that I've depicted that explains my numbers on the right-hand side. So essentially, if you look at the Elite plan, we have obviously on-demand access to Solid Professor, which is the learning tool that I described a little bit earlier. We will show you more about that shortly. But essentially, if you were to buy this directly, you would typically pay 9,000 Rand for this, for a year's subscription. If we look at the instructor-led training, so that's obviously classes held at MECAD's offices, we provide 3,000 Rand discount. And this is applied per individual. When I say individual, I mean per CAD license, essentially, that you subscribe with an Elite subscription. So in other words, if you were to buy a new license, either a term license or a perpetual license, and apply this Elite subscription plan to your subscription, you would obviously have eligibility to all of these various different benefits as well. So just to be clear on that. So essentially, if you had 5 CAD licenses, what we're actually saying is that would be 5 times the 3,000 Rand that could be applied to training. Obviously, it can't be combined, but you can obviously send 5 individuals for training, and we'll give all 5 individuals a discount. And the good thing about that training is that it's on every different course that we offer with regards to our training. So it's not limited to an essentials training course, which I know most of you have probably done already, but this could be anything really that we provide and offer. In addition to that, we did mention earlier the Ask an Expert session. So essentially, if we just look at our typical hourly rates that we would charge out, for our professionals, we're looking at about 1,900 Rand for a 2-hour session. Then the MECAD tools licenses is an interesting pricing topic. The reason I'm saying that is because there are different derivatives of this price point. So essentially, for non-subscription users, in other words, the chaps that obviously don't renew their subscription on their perpetual licensing, essentially they would pay 8,500 Rand for a MECAD tools license, and that would be per license. Now, because you are a subscription paying customer, we obviously gave those customers, and I'm saying subscription paying customers, we gave those customers the benefits of actually trialing MECAD tools for 12 months free. And in fact, that's still the case, and it's still the premise for this as well. So in other words, if you buy a new license from us of perpetual or term of CAD, we will obviously provide you with 12 months free MECAD tools. Thereafter, as a subscribed customer, your typical fee for renewal on that, should you wish to continue with MECAD tools, would be 1,500 Rand as a subscribed customer. However, we provide you with a 50% discount as a subscribed customer on the 1,500 Rand amount. Okay, so just to be clear about that. And then obviously on the consultancy services side of things, we've taken an example there of a 38,000 Rand consulting job, let's just say for argument's sake. That could be anywhere between 38 to maybe 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 Rand, just depending on the nature of it. So the 20% obviously applied there on the 38,000. You will see on the 6,000 Rand on the right hand side, 7,600 Rand on the right hand side, denoted there as consulting. And then, of course, obviously on the service level agreements as well. If we look at our typical service level agreements that we've been sort of signing up with customers for various different reasons, the sort of average spend is anywhere between 108 to 144,000 Rand. So the 10% applied there obviously is only applicable to a 12-month SLA. So that's very important to remember. But that can be a significant discount there as well. So that 10% on that 144 represents obviously 14,400 Rand discount. And then lastly, we were looking at the example of the placement fee. Now, again, this can be very, this is very subjective as well, and it can also be negotiable too. So 3,000 is actually the minimum. That's the minimum amount that we would be willing to discount. But depending on the actual placement and obviously the cost to company value, that can be slightly negotiable as well in an upward trajectory, which is the good news. But yeah, that's, I've just taken a rough calculation, 365, per annum cost to company amount there, obviously with the placement fee on that we would typically charge, maybe 20 to 25% theoretically with a discount on that. Again, those rates, of course, are also negotiable through our recruiting team. But yeah, now just coming over to the right-hand side, I think it's very easy to visualize and very easy to understand the complete total value that is actually represented here. And this is what we mean, and I'm sure you may have seen it on our websites, or perhaps maybe some of our sales team members have actually communicated this to you in the past and might have mentioned that there's about a 40,000 Rand value add. And this is how we come to this value add. So obviously we've worked out everything that we're willing to put on the table for you as a customer. We've obviously looking at the uplift fee that we're charging for the access to the Solid Professor, but then of course all the benefits that we derive and put on the table that we believe ultimately translates to about 40,000 Rand in value. So you can understand why I'm saying this is a strategic asset rather than an additional cost. It's obviously a win-win all the way for you, Mr. Customer. Okay, I'd like to quickly jump into playing a quick video. It's a short video. It's only going to be about 90 seconds. But this is a quick introduction to Solid Professor. I'm sure you're wondering, for maybe those who don't know, what exactly Solid Professor is. I did mention it's a learning channel. But there are a couple of other little benefits here or there. But let's quickly play the video, have a quick look at it. And then after that, I'm going to quickly run you through some of the listed benefits of this. All right, here we go.
Many engineering design teams struggle to make time for training. But training doesn't have to be the costly, time-consuming event it once was. Now it's easy to learn new CAD, CAM, and BIM skills in just a few hours, or even minutes at a time. Thanks to Solid Professor for Business, an online, on-demand training platform built for the modern engineering team. We have the largest online course library for learning engineering design with over 7,500 video tutorials. The dashboard is your online training command center. Your team can pick up where they left off, access assigned lessons and bookmarked video tutorials. As an administrator, you can create employee training groups, choose from pre-created lesson plans, or tailor your program for your team's specific needs. In the Reporting tab, you'll find cumulative metrics for your organization, top performers, and more. Drill down to view reports for every group and individual to quickly identify critical skills gaps and areas for advancement. Finally, with admin tools, you can manage group members in bulk and update permissions anytime, anywhere. Everything you need to upskill your engineering design team is in your hands. Solid Professor for Business. Design with confidence.
Okay, fantastic. I hope the audio was good for you. It sounded a bit weird on my side, but I am wearing an earpiece, so it could be that. But yeah, let's have a quick look now. So obviously you've had a quick synopsis of that, a quick overview. But let's dig into a little bit of the detail in terms of what is available actually on the Solid Professor platform. So first of all, it is an online platform. I think we've mentioned that, and it's always available. So benefit being in that obviously is, if you're looking to do training, training can be a difficult thing to plan or to align in terms of your own your requirements from an operational point of view. Sometimes very difficult to pull people or members out of your teams to send them for formal training. We do understand it. So this is a great way to access anytime, over weekends, after hours, whatever the case may be. So very flexible in that regard. Of course, what's nice is with the platform as well, Solid Professor also provides an onboarding lesson also. So in other words, everything that you just saw in terms of dashboards and reports and groups and creating groups, they obviously talk you and walk you through all of that as well. So there is a learning plan and learning lesson through that. In addition to the dashboards that's added, obviously that becomes your online command center. So essentially clicking on the dashboard takes you to sort of a page or an environment where you can pretty much pick up on last lessons that you've started, or review any new additional feeds that are coming through. As I said, this becomes a very live system, meaning that Solid Professor are obviously adding new tips and tricks and new content, almost on a daily basis. So obviously that would come through in the form of feeds, and that would be visible on your dashboards also. With regards to quick search, there is quick search functions as well. What's really nice about this tool also is that it actually has an add-in for SOLIDWORKS as well. So it would typically sit on your right-hand pane, as you normally familiar with most of the feeds coming in on the right-hand side of your SOLIDWORKS environment. And essentially you could launch this directly from there, pretty much like PDM could also be launched pretty much from that side or so. You can actually do then reference searching or quick searches, in terms of getting stuck with something, instead of going to, Google and maybe YouTubing and trying to find something relevant to solve a problem. Yeah, you could actually just go straight in here and start, context searching, and it will actually narrow down right into a video to the exact point of where it's discussing that specific topic that may be of interest to you. So that's pretty great. Then in addition to that, obviously the large course library. It is a massive repository of learning materials, and they are not only just SOLIDWORKS. In fact, there's quite a large amount of content around Mastercam. As you also know that we are also resellers of Mastercam through our manufacturing divisions. So yes, there's a lot of training in that area. For those that may have CamWorks, there's a lot of training in CamWorks also. There are alternative CAD products training also available in this. I'm not going to talk too much about that today. Obviously, we're only red, we're SOLIDWORKS, and that's what our training base is followed on. But essentially, if we talk SOLIDWORKS, there's plus minus about 400 courses, I believe they claim, to be available with related to SOLIDWORKS content. So it's very, very rich with content. Then, of course, the skills analyzer is a very nice one. If you're bringing in new recruits, or even if you would like to, on the rollout of Solid Professor, once you employ this in your own businesses, perhaps decide to do, benchmarking to try and gauge where your team currently is from a skills analysis point of view. That can be very easily achieved through the skills analyzer that is actually in Solid Professor. Then, of course, on the custom lessons and plans, as it depicted there in the little video, it explained that you can actually set up groups or work groups with different persons, in different teams, as an example, and you could actually allocate certain courses or lessons that you would like them to actually complete within a specified time frame, obviously to try and achieve those certifications. And when I say certifications, we need to use the word carefully, because Solid Professor actually have their own achievement and certifications also. So for every course you complete or every certification you complete theoretically, they actually issue their version of it. But what's really great is, and you'll see a little bit lower, we talk about the certification prep and LearnWays, and I'm going to talk about that a little more in a second. But that could be a very nice thing to do, as well as to actually plan a pathway or a learning pathway for your individuals. Then obviously on the reporting and metrics, aligning and planning is one thing, but we need to also measure as well for the success. So essentially, the reporting side does allow you to do metrics-based measurements. It does allow you to obviously determine who has obviously completed which courses, and also the proficiency level in those courses as well, to see where there perhaps are shortfalls or skills gaps that maybe need to be covered for further advancement. And then lastly, of course, the admin tools that they refer to there as well. This is completely administrable. Essentially, when we roll out on this or deliver this, we obviously train and we onboard the administrators at the company, and they are then in a position from there to obviously assign licensing to their subordinates or to their team members. And essentially from there can actually map this out in terms of privileges, access to certain learning materials and contents. It's very configurable. And then, of course, lastly, the certification prep, the learning pathways that I mentioned earlier. What's really great is, and I want to bring your attention to this, I know that a lot of you are familiar with the certifications that SOLIDWORKS offers, being the associates, professional, and obviously the expert. So, acronyms, CSWAs, CSWPs, we've got a number of them. I think CSWEs is very elite. We don't have so many of those in the country, but we have a few in MECAD. But essentially, they provide within their platform a very nice preparation pathway for you to essentially test your skills towards achieving a CSWA or CSWP certification through SOLIDWORKS. So obviously it would be written on a different platform, of course, but this can help you prepare for those certifications. I know it can be quite daunting, trying to prepare on your own without any sort of leading or direction, and then getting into the certification platforms on SOLIDWORKS side, and maybe things just go wrong. You just weren't correctly prepared, or maybe you didn't expect or anticipate some of the questions or the direction that it was going to go. And this can really help you a great deal in that. So super, super nice offering there. All right, then we're going to quickly dive into the instructor-led training. As I said, this is one of those benefits that we added on as well to you as an Elite subscribed purchaser as such, or subscription holder. So as you would know, and I've said it before, we don't discourage at all in any way, contact training. We believe it's vital. We know also that MECAD does have a very good name in the market with regards to training. We have a very good reputation as well in respect of how our certificates are perceived in the market, especially for youngsters coming into the market. If they leave with an essential certification from MECAD, it's often can be a door opener for a new job opportunity. And we still very strongly believe in that. So just to mention, we do have 3 branches situated in Gauteng, KwaZulu, Natal, obviously in Cape Town. The one that you're looking at there now is actually our Gauteng office. That's just one of them. We have a separate building where we actually provide training. We have a very well equipped training facility. I think one of our training facilities can actually handle up to about 25 participants at a time. And it's fully equipped. So, you just need to generally most part bring yourself and just come and enjoy the training with us. Obviously, it also is all authorized training facilities and centers, obviously authorized by SOLIDWORKS themselves as well. So it is accredited in that way or endorsed by them. Then I want to speak about our team with regards to the training. Of course, we have a very competent team. I'm sure some of you have maybe already participated in some of these training courses, would have experienced maybe some of our team members. Obviously, some of them have competencies in certain skills, maybe not all skills. So we'll find obviously always the right training facilitator, for the right course as well. So again, 3,000 Rand, as I said, on any training course. Please remember that it's not just essentials. And then leveraging, obviously that Ask an Expert, that 2-hour session. This is the next benefit. So as you would know, I mean, we have, like I said already, we have a lot of really, really good people in our organization that are really, really skilled in different disciplines or certain areas. Some are not limited to just SOLIDWORKS. A lot of us also come out of industry. I myself come out of industry. So we have a background perhaps in manufacturing or, various different areas of manufacturing actually. Some of us are obviously professional engineers also that have joined the organization more on our technology side of the business. Some are very skilled in the high-end side of simulation products, etc. But essentially, where does this fit in on your side of things in terms of how can you leverage this? Well, an example would be, given a good example here is maybe you do have a simulation requirement, and maybe you have a project that you are busy with or doing, and there's a product perhaps that needs to be analyzed. And it's not so much about, it's not so much about sort of analyzing the actual product, but rather about the inputs from the origin and obviously the outputs, which is going to be most important. And for some of you that may have been participants in our Gauteng launch, you would remember Jean-Paul Abassi from Dassault SolidWorks stating that on simulation-related topics, that it's very important always about what you're putting into the system in order to get quality out. And I think that for the most cases is generally principle for everything in life, really. But on the simulation side of things, this could be an area of value to you. So perhaps you may be obviously a qualified engineer, you may be in a position to actually set up these studies, but maybe you just need a little bit of insight. Maybe you just need a bit of leading or a little bit of guiding in terms of the right processes or the right methodologies to approach your actual study with. And that would be an example of where you could potentially set up a 2-hour session with one of our specialists. And the way that you would actually do that, leveraging this or how you'd go about it, is actually by going onto our MECAD systems website, where on the website you'll actually find that we have a resources tab, and if you follow that down to the drop down, you'll see an Elite Subscription tab, and if you click on that, you're going to eventually come down to all these various different offerings that we have. And essentially, all you need to do is click on this one that says schedule your expert session. Now, what happens is obviously there's a pop-up that will come up, and it's going to be product selective. So if it is product specific, you would obviously make those selections. But if it's something else, you would then obviously give some context for that. And that's really just an initial step for initiating this process. What happens with the completed form is once your details are provided, it is submitted to our operations team. They then in due course will actually reach out to you and then actually firm up exactly what it is that you're looking to do. And the purpose for that call is to make sure that we maximize the value of that 2-hour session, that we don't misinterpret your requirement or your need, just from it being in written formats on a form, but rather that we have some dialogue with you and understand where you want to go, what it is that you want to do. And we can maybe even give you some insight there as well before you even commit to this. And essentially, leverage this benefits of that 2-hour session. So it's just an example. It can be used for anything. If you want, pointers or guidelines of how to set up templates or how to, set up custom properties or whatever the case may be. Now, I mean, if I'm speaking to the well-converted on the SolidWorks side, then, this is probably falling on deaf ears. But for new guys who've obviously, found SolidWorks or ventured into our sort of family of SolidWorks, then this could be very vital for you as well. So yeah, just moving on to the next thing, obviously MECAD tools. This is a very, I would say it's a bit of complicated. I say complicated because it's very extensive. There are about 70 different productivity tools available in MECAD tools. What MECAD tools is obviously a productivity developed solution, essentially, or a package of solutions, a bundle of solutions. But they are also gold partner products as well. So those that maybe aren't familiar with the terminology of gold certified, etc., usually what happens is when you have a certified product or partner product for SolidWorks, that means theoretically that it could be it's not necessarily an add-in, but it could be something that, for example, you could communicate with or collaborate with. Okay, so it could be a third-party tool, essentially, that you might be able to export to or import from, one of the two. When we talk about gold certified products, that theoretically means that it's usually fully integrated in SolidWorks as well. In other words, they might have a tab or a key function or something that you could actually launch this from inside of SolidWorks environments as well. So that's usually gold certified products. And a lot of the features and the functions that are offered through these productivity tools obviously need to be integrated inside SolidWorks for you to get the best effect out of them. And just some of those areas, just out of interest, obviously you'd be looking at things like file and data management tools as well. There would be a whole laundry list there. We would be talking about drawing and documentation. So in other words, fine tuning that, maybe it might be denoting actual drawings with a bit of automation as an example. When we speak about design and productivity, there would be some very nice tools available there as well. So I'm not going to dive too deep into that because, as I said, that's quite an extensive suite of product. However, what I do want to emphasize to you again is that this is freely available to you for 12 months on any new license purchase that you make. And also, if you have been a subscription paying customer and you haven't yet had or trialed MECAD tools, please, I implore with you to reach out to any of our team members and we can set you up with that right away. Obviously, thereafter, when we come to your subscription renewal side of things, we try to align this also with your renewals, but it's not limited to that. We are flexible with that. But at the end of the day, it's a case of we will obviously renew this with the discount if you're on Elite or for 1,500 Rand, and you would get the continued use of this product. Okay, so just jumping over, obviously, who's it recommended for? Very simply, MECAD tools can be used by any designer or any user of SOLIDWORKS. There's something in there for almost anyone and everyone. Maybe you're only going to use one of 70 productivity tools. Maybe you use 10. But the bottom line is it's for everyone. Obviously, when we look at the solution, as I said, it is also something that's been continuously updated as well, which is a really good thing. So you can rely on the quality of it, and obviously the packaging of it would be really good too. And as I said, 70 productivity tools. Okay. All right, so now coming over the technology side. So for those of you that don't know, obviously we have different branches of our business. We have a MECAD systems, a manufacturing, and we have a technologies outfit. On the technology side, this is typically where we've developed a lot of new productivity tools as well, APIs, etc., that we've typically written. Some of which, as I mentioned earlier, we've actually exhibited or shown at our launch events. And theoretically, when we talk about the consulting, I'd like to just give you an example of the consulting. A prime example of this would be a company where we, for example, have actually placed an individual permanently. When I say permanently, obviously, for the duration of the contract, whereby that person, for example, could be actually performing a certain work function, within your design team as part of your member of your team on site. That's one way that we can apply these kind of services. Another would be obviously that, in terms of us rendering the service outside of our business, meaning that, naturally after signing NDAs or whatever the case may be, we could obviously pull in some of your information, or your projects, and actually assist you with that. So that could be a simulation consulting that we do for you. It could be, maybe a very bespoke set of project that you want us to do on a vault, as an example, with PDM. It's really as long as a string, where we could potentially go into this area. There are obviously some things that we're not specialized in, and that, of course, we won't focus on. And how we typically approach that is obviously through doing an assessment first. We'll never obviously take on anything or quote on anything without doing an assessment to understand completely what the requirements are. And then, based on that, we'd provide a proposal. Where we cannot do the work, we'll obviously advise immediately, not to delay you any further. And then obviously on the SLA side, of course, it's usually coupled. The SLAs are usually coupled with our product data management side of things. So in other words, where we deliver on data management software, essentially there's customization that's sometimes required. So it's very nice to attach an SLA to that, which typically would, allow you then hours for us to actually come and assist and do those necessary changes, either on site or obviously from our side remotely. But in addition to that, I've known companies also, for example, as I said, to buy a year SLA with us. which essentially gives them a set number of hours for that 12 months, and they burn or leverage those hours as they require. In other words, if we need your help to set up our templates, sure, that's so many hours, we assess it, we give you a quote for it, and obviously we burn off the hours. And that's one way that you could apply that. So again, the discounts that we described earlier, unfortunately, they're not per person in this situation, as you would understand, because of the large values involved. But this would be per company per year. So as long as you are obviously on Elite subscription for the year, you would naturally have 10% discount and 20% discount, which can be used in isolation, of course. And that could be applied per year, per company. It's also not per user. So just to be very crystal clear on that. But we do have a terms and conditions, T's and C's, very detailed document that is available on our website. So you're more than welcome to go and review that and look through that to better understand exactly what we do and what we don't do. And then lastly, on the recruiting side, as we mentioned before, a really important, I think a really important facet to our business, or an addition to our business in terms of servicing you as our end customers. This was really born through simplicity of us recognizing as well, with customers that were looking to purchase new licensing, 9 out of 10 times it would be the case that they had either someone that they had just employed, or it was someone that they were still looking to employ, but had a need for expansion. And obviously we recognized a bit of a bottleneck there also in our sales processes as well. So this was a great opportunity for us to actually solve two problems, and that was, try and solve a customer's problem, but at the same time also solve our sales process problem as well. So essentially just cutting sales cycles down, really, but in the same token, obviously getting you as the customer satisfied a lot quicker. So that's one aspect of it. The other is, as I said, our recruiting services are quite broad. We have a reasonable team there of about 2, 3, 4 people plus minus. And they are focused on recruiting in all areas. In fact, not only local, we've done recruiting for companies that are abroad, where South Africans have actually gone over, either on short-term contracts or perhaps longer. But also the opposite is true as well. We've actually employed for local companies that have actually brought people from overseas that have actually been quite keen to come to South Africa and find new opportunity here as well. So we've had a lot of success in this area. And again, I would implore with you to speak to any of our team members, any of your business consultants that meet up with you from time to time, again, for the purpose and the main reason of hearing the pulse of your business, trying to understand where you're at, trying to understand where you're going now, maybe in the future, so that we can align always and just make sure we're always delivering top-notch service to you, and obviously solutions and products. So again, those discounts that are applicable are on placement fees, and as I said to you, it is coupled to cost to company calculations and formulas, but all of this is available to you as an Elite subscription holder, and again per company as well. So this is not per license, this is actually per company, and that's pretty much it from my side. I think in one last thing, I did say that I wanted to just give you next steps before we jump into the Q&A session. So how do you get Elite Enhanced Subscription? So maybe there's 2 ways that you can do this. The one is obviously you can reach out, you can be proactive and reach out to us, and we can assist you with that immediately. You don't have to be at renewal point. You don't have to necessarily be buying a new license now either. In order to get this as an existing customer who has subscription, we can co-line it. It's not a problem. Or if you're comfortable to do that as well, you can actually wait until your next renewal comes up. We have a planned rollout of this, obviously because of the huge customer base that we have and the number of CAD licenses that are out there. We want to make sure that every customer understands this offering very clearly, that understands the difference about the uplift fee and obviously the value gain as well. That's a very important narrative, and it's obviously a very important message we want to make sure that we get across correctly to our customers. The intention is to, again, as I said, bring you value and hopefully align with you as you are growing. We wish to grow too. And that's it from my side. I hope I sort of covered everything, but that's why we do have this Q&A. If there are questions that I'm not able to answer, obviously we'll just make a note of it and we'll get your details and we'll be sure to come back to you personally to actually have a more lengthy conversation around that. Thank you very much for your time.